That's 5.3 tracks the first year back.
So Herb, we're going to get started, and to Herb Layfield, we say thank you. Thanks for letting us come into your house here.
You're perfectly welcome. I'm glad to have you.
Is this, was the Layfield racing, did that come from your dad? Was that something in the family?
No, in fact, he kind of didn't like it. When Dean first started jalopies back before World War II, Dad didn't want him to race, and so he was going to stop him, so we drove down the road towards Portville, and then ducked right back up the Duke Center Road and went over to Limestone. And the time he went to Portville to stop us, we was at Limestone, and so he got there just a little late. and so, no, there was 8 of us boys and 2 girls in our family, and 6 of us raced. And I had a nephew that beat Davy Allison out in points down in Montgomery, Alabama one year.
No kidding.
So I raced Alabama probably 5 or 6 tracks down there. And the reason I did, my brother Rex was stationed there in the Air Force for most of his term in the Air Force. And I'd go down every year to see him, and he'd find me a ride for somebody. I raced down there several tracks: Haleburg, Dothan, Coleman, Phoenix City, Alabama, and Montgomery. So
now, in this chronology of things, was Dean the oldest of?
Jerry was oldest, and Dean was the second oldest.
Right.
And then there was Conrad, and Conrad raced with Dean and Jerry in jalopies for World War II. And then, of course, Bob never raced, and then there was me, then Ray, and then Rex, he raced, and then Bill and Audrey. Bill raced quite a few years. He raced more than I did at State Line. Actually, I only raced one time at State Line.
Really?
I run Dean's car there one night for him. I raced at Sugar Grove a lot.
Did you Skyline?
Yeah. And in fact, at Sugar Grove, their guy called me, and they're building a museum there. And he called me and wanted a picture of my car and me, and picture of Dean and I to put in the museum up there.
Yeah, they actually, what they did is, there's an old bowling alley in Sugar Grove, and they converted it to a restaurant. And the guy that owns the restaurant is Fran Siemens, who owns State Line Speedway.
Yeah, right.
And so some of his friends have decorated the walls in this restaurant with pictures, and your picture is in there because we saw it the other day when we were there for breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
Your picture's there, and then Dean's picture is in there. So yeah, it's a museum of sorts because it's just full of racing pictures.
That's nice.
There was a guy from Sugar Grove. He knew my grandson real well because my grandson worked at Cycle City in Erie on snowmobiles and race cars and stuff. And this guy by the name of Cliff Lechner called me up, and was the one that told me about this. And he called me, and he wanted to know if I could tell him what to do to his carburetor for his car. And so I led him through the routine rebuilding the Holly carburetor for racing, and he called me back and told me it worked good. He told me what he accomplished with it.
Here you are in Allentown near Wellsville. State Line's quite a distance away. What ultimately drove the Layfields having an interest in going to Sugar Grove and Bust-On, New York?
Well, we just kind of followed where the guys was racing, like Squirt Johns and a few of them guys that we knew there that raced with us at Smithport, and so they kind of got us going up to Sugar Grove and that. And of course, Squirt and them was all pretty good friends of ours.
Mm-hmm. Did you because of the Layfield, I'm sure there was competition among you boys. He being a little bit older than you guys, was he the guy to beat in your family?
Yeah. Start off with Dean and I was the best of friends, but I wanted to beat him worse than anybody else. Yeah. And in 1955, Dean and I was pretty much lapping the field down there at Wellsville, and Dean says, Herb, he says, why push your car like that? He says, you're not going to beat me anyway. And he says, you're just taking it out on our cars. And he says, why don't you slow down a little bit? And I said, well, Dean, I said, I'll tell you, if I'm not right there when you slip, I'm not going to beat you. I said, someday I'm going to beat you. Well, in 1956, I kind of figured I did. I run before they thought I had the heart attack. I had run 11 features. Out of the 11 features, I took 7 firsts, 2 seconds, 4th, and 5th. Well, I kind of thought I beat Dean that year. And then they had me out for a heart attack, they said, but I never did have. And I went back in 62 and started racing mostly 6-cylinders then. But I had raced modifieds and 6-cylinders, late models. In fact, I was high point at Cuba Lake when I got the late model, and I quit there to go running my own late model because, well, the bank wanted me to pay them. And I had bought this wrecked 55 Ford and tinkered it up enough to race it, and borrowed the money from the bank. Dean told me if I get the car, he'd put all the money in it if I keep it up, and he'd give me half what we won. And Imogene says, well, if he can do that, well, we can probably, you can race it and get all the money you take in. So I borrowed the money from the bank, and the first weekend I raced it, I paid for the car back.
Good for you.
So I guess that was a pretty good deal.
Yeah, that's a pretty good deal.
When, in 1956, when you were actually had that great success against Dean, what was Dean saying to you?
Well, it's kind of funny. Al Basson, a friend of ours, was an announcer at Wellsville and 2 or 3 different tracks. And in 1955, every time he'd introduce us out on to go racing at the start of the race, he'd say, there's Dean Layfield in his famous 9/16, and Herb Layfield, Dean's brother Herb, in the 48. Then in 56, he started announcing, and there's Herb Layfield in number 48, and Herb's brother Dean. In the 9/16. It didn't really set all that good with him. But I think, I don't think Dean was running me down. I think he was just kind of making me, he was going to be the objective. And I think he figured that I'd be more or less wanting to beat him then. Because Dean was left-handed, and him and I'd work on the car, and that was handy for us both. We both worked on our cars. I worked on his, and he worked on mine. If we had a good idea, if I had one, he'd take it. If he had one, I'd take it. And that's the way we was.
Where was your garage? Did you have a specific location where the car?
Mostly right out there where you see my car. Yeah, under the nearest shade tree.
Always had a lot of storage.
Dean had
a garage.
I worked on Dean's garage. Him and I built the garage together. In fact, we owned it together for a while. Just a small garage, and then he built a house there.
Is this house on Drum Road here too? Is this
No, Bill and Betty live up the road.
Okay,
O'Connor Street in Wellsville.
Okay.
And then he had the Studebaker agency, and
Oh, is that right?
he sold Studebaker Lark until he got killed there in '61.
Why the success of the Layfields generally? I mean, what was unique about Dean's driving abilities that would lead to the kind of success that he had and maybe you had that you learned from?
Well, I think mostly Dean and I were supposedly good mechanics. We was probably the two highest paid mechanics in Willisville. And I think most of our success, his and mine, was mostly due to we had good equipment. We made good equipment. He built his own cars and I built my own cars. We built our own motors. And so I think a lot of, well, they say driving, they figured Dean was the best driver around. Well, maybe he was, but I think a lot of our success was mostly we knew what to do to the cars. Because I'd started, well, 1938, when Dean and them first started in late 38, he was running Model A Fords. And I first built my first carburetor was for his Model A Ford. And I built 73 of them one year. And I built them for guys from Akron, Ohio, a couple of guys and from West Virginia. And so, I mean, I did the work on Dean's carburetor and mine. And we both did our own motor work and everything.
It sounded like you traveled and raced at a lot of racetracks. What was a normal week for Dean and Herb Layfield?
Well, mostly it was Smithport, and then I think it was Sunday, I believe, at Sugar Grove or Saturday night. And then sometimes Cuba Lake, because run the sportsmen mostly there. And of course we'd run Baths. Before Dean got killed, we had run about 70 different tracks around the country. And at one time, not very long, but just for a short time, Dean and I was racing 7 times a week. Sometimes we'd race in the afternoon and then race again that night. So we got around to the tracks and stuff.
Were the economics of it all such that you guys were making a living just on racing?
No, mostly I worked at, when I was racing the late model, I worked at Lincoln Mercury Garage, and Dean was shop foreman at Lincoln Mercury. And then I worked at Cadillac Olds. And back then we racing just about paid for our racing, go to the track and stuff. And then when I was racing the 6-cylinders, I never took a dime out of my check or nothing. It just the racing paid. But I didn't make 10 cents an hour racing. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't nothing I made a living at. But Dean didn't either. But it didn't come out of from our family.
Did Dean talk much about State Line Speedway? He seemingly had good success up there, was a point champion in '57.
Yeah.
What was his sense of State Line?
He liked it.
You liked it?
Yeah, I did too. The night I run Dean's car once. He had to do something else, and I pardon me. Why don't you grab the stool?
Oh, no, I'm okay.
I only raced there once. Yeah, Dean really liked State Line. He liked Sugar Grove. I liked Sugar Grove, but I liked State Line the night I run it. And then Bill raced there a lot, and Bill liked it.
Was there a sense that the purse at State Line was a little more than other racetracks?
Yeah, State Line did pay better. State Line Erie paid a little better. I did good at when I run Sugar Grove, but State Line did pay a little more. But I run a different night, so I didn't run up there. I was running, pardon me, mostly Bradford when Dean was running State Line.
Why 9/16?
Oh, Okay, it tells you right in that.
Okay.
But anyway, the Model A Ford, Dean started racing. Printing all the bolts on it took a 9/16 wrench.
Oh.
So Dean called it 9/16, and that's where that originated. And mine was the year I started, 48,
There you go.
late 48.
Too logical.
Well, how about Billy's number? Why?
I don't know. I never did know. Just
I think it was the age he started.
21?
Yeah.
Okay.
was that when he started?
You want some water, Herb?
Sure.
Yeah. No, do you want water?
Can you get Herb a glass of water,
Yeah.
please? Thank you.
You want to get him a big glass out there?
For you, Herb.
Yeah, we're more worried about you.
Oh, he,
Yes, state line was a good track because always pretty kept up pretty decent.
Do you remember some of the personalities around State Line at the time, such as Leonard
Well,
Briggs?
for you.
Yeah, Briggs, and then I knew a lot of the drivers because they run down near Smithport. There's Squirt Johns and Bob Duell, and there's quite a few of them. And Kenny Johnson, Fat Kenny Johnson. I got to tell you a story about that. Kenny was probably at the time was probably about a tenth, somewhere around their place car at Wellsville. And NASCAR run a race at Rochester, and Ed Otto was promoter for NASCAR, and he's a friend of Dean and I, and Jim Ponder, starter, got us to go up to Rochester one night, and we got up there, and Ed Otto says, "Where's your cars?" And we said, "We couldn't run them up there, they're too beat up." And he said, "Bring them up, you can run." So we called all over, pardon me, tried to get somebody to bring our car up. We didn't have time to come back down and get it. So we just didn't get to run that night. And Lee Petty won, and Ken Johnson come in sixth. So we'd have probably come in there somewhere in the top 4 or 5.
Wouldn't that have been something? Some of the other guys at that time period, Tom Dill,
I don't know as I knew him.
the Finales.
I knew them, yeah.
Yeah.
You know Ron Blackmer?
Yeah.
All right, Ron come down here, run 6 cylinders down at Smithport, and I beat him out in points down in Smithport with a sportsman.
No small task, because he won everything up in our neck of the woods with the sportsmen.
Yeah,
So
yes, he did.
That's
He had that Pontiac overhead valve engine.
Did Dean take you when there was that period of time when you weren't racing because you thought you had the heart attack? Did you go to the track with Dean?
Not much, because what I was doing was trying to stay away from it, because every time they claimed I had a heart attack, of course that scared the hell out of me. And I tried to stay away from the tracks because every time I'd go to a track, somebody'd hound me to go drive their car for them. So I told her, I said, the best bet is stay away from them, I guess. So I didn't even go. In fact, I didn't even know some of the times that Dean went. He ran 6 or 7 times was the Winston Cup cars, and I didn't even know. Mainly, the only one I knew about was the one he ran at Daytona.
So he ran at Daytona?
Dean?
Dean did, yeah.
Yeah, 1958.
Did he?
Yeah, he,
There's water.
Pearsall Motors. Did you get them?
No, just
We're okay.
We're fine. You're doing all the talking. We're just pretending.
Pearsall Motors in Smithport, or Shingle House, gave Dean a 58 Chevy. Dean paid half a dealer cost on it. Of course, then there's no tax. paid half a dealer cost, and Pearsall paid half. And I welded the roll bars in it, and Dean drove it to Daytona, and finished 12th with it, and drove it back to Wellsville. And he, what was that? Carl Tyler went down there at the same time, and I guess Carl's blew an engine, and Dean towed his car back to where Carl was living in Carolina at the time. He towed it back with his Chevy. That was awful, towing a Ford with a Chevy. But, but it happened. Again, you know, like I told you, I like that. Dick Barton on the county is running the car instead of a Chevy. At least I called a Ford the car then. No, the Chevy was good. They had to be, or they wouldn't have won most of them.
That's funny stuff.
But I liked Fords. I had good luck with them. I pretty much dominated that 6-cylinder class for 17 years. Won 19 championships, 17 high points, 273 features altogether. So,
unbelievable. Congratulations.
So, thank you. Had good luck. Yeah. I got to tell you again about that, good luck, because guy come up to me up Woodall one night. I just won the feature, and he says, "Boy, you're a lucky son of a gun." And I said, "Yeah, I know it." And seems like the harder I work, the luckier I get.
That's really good.
Yeah, that luck will come with a lot of hard work, too.
What do you remember about Leonard Briggs? Because he owned Skyline when you were racing down there.
I liked him, and there's, what was the other guy's name that was in with him? There was Briggs.
Coons.
And then,
at Skyline, you mean?
Yeah.
Cliff Coons.
Coons, yeah. And then I raced at Dickie Ben Speedway there in Warren, and there's Ben White and Dick Morrison. And I knew them real well. I led that 100-lapper in 1951. Paid $600 to win, and I didn't even know I was in first. And I come out towards the end of it, and them guys telling me to get back in, and I told them there's something out of the car, and I didn't know what it was, you know, but I was telling them. And here I was running first, and it run 2 laps after I went out. Jim Ponder and them claimed it run 107 laps. If it did, well, I won it. But anyway, Dean ended up taking it, and I ended up with a $10 toll money for going out after leading it to 2 laps from the end.
Did you run against Freddie Knapp?
Yeah, from Bustye.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What do you know about Freddie Knapp?
I liked him. I liked all the guys that I run against. I never hated none of them. I mean, tried to beat them, wanted to beat them, and they wanted to beat me. But I liked all the guys. I liked all the guys at Woodall. I mean, I think most of them liked me because they had me as representative for the class for several years, and so yeah, I never hated none of the guys. Just wanted to beat them. So.
Well, and you did. Were they envious of you? With all your success, Herb? Did the crowd encourage you, or did they want to see you get beat?
Most of the crowd liked me to beat. Most of them. Fact is, when they'd have kiddie rides, the kids would all ride on the car, and what there'd be about, somehow how they did it, I don't know, but there'd be about 50 of the kids pile on my car to ride around the track. And, no, the crowd mostly liked me. In fact, they got a little tangled with the officials up at Perry, and all the crowd was against the officials. That happened. I mean, I didn't hate them. I got along with them. One time we had a little discussion. Like I said, I guess that goes back to the Tony Stewart days.
Did the Layfields, at various times, obviously Dean, you, Billy, would all be either on the track at the same time, or
Oh, yeah.
did you find yourself working as a team, or was it simply, I want to beat you, and
No, we'd work together at the track and go out to beat each other, and sometimes we did. But no, we was friendly rivals, I guess you'd say.
were there times when if Dean might have seen somebody took you out, would there be any sort of idea that I'll get even?
No.
You were going to sense that?
we didn't. In fact, there's only one time that I really remember spinning the guy out, and the guy had ironed me all year, and finally, in just the mid-season championship, and I know, I still know to this day that the officials and him had that cooked up because they didn't want me to be High Point again that year, and he ironed me, and so I spun him kind of like a button on an outhouse door. they come running down. Says, looks like you done that on purpose. I says, better damn well believe it. I said, look that way from where I sat too. They said, well, then you did do it on purpose. I said, yeah. And they said, well, I guess you're going to sit out about 3 weeks, so you know better than do that again. I said, yeah, unless it's needed again. And so they set me out 3 weeks. One was the mid-season championship. So that actually, for double points, that made me sitting out 4 weeks. I still ended up High Point man for the year.
What track was that at, Herb?
Woodhull.
Woodhull, okay.
But after that way, he didn't need it again. I didn't like it because I had a brother killed racing, and I didn't want to be the object of somebody getting hurt. But
Let's talk about that. I mean, your brother Dean died untimely. What happened?
all right, I was in Biloxi, Mississippi at the time. Dean was racing at Perry, and Dean, so I wasn't there, and they had what they call some tracks Australian pursuit race, and if you pass a guy, he drops out, and I guess Dean got to lead, I guess, or something, and the car kicked up a stone on the track, and it hit him in the temple, and he died the following Friday. That was on a Sunday, and he died in the Buffalo General Hospital. We was down in Biloxi, Mississippi, visiting. My brother then was in the Air Force at Biloxi, and we was all down there, and my brother-in-law called me and told me about him getting hurt. And we'd been to the zoo in New Orleans that day and come home, and that night they was ready to leave the next morning for home, and my brother-in-law called me and told me about it, so we loaded all his kids and my kids in the car, and he got to leave, and we back home. Went in and seen him Tuesday night. We left there on a Monday morning. We drove straight through and got up there Tuesday afternoon from Biloxi, and we stopped a couple hours in Montgomery to see his wife's folks, and so we made good time coming home from, and we went out, seen him Tuesday night, and they said if he made it till Wednesday that he'd make it all right. And so I told them, my brothers and them, I says, he ain't gonna come out of here. He didn't. Yeah, he died that following Friday in Buffalo General.
Mm-hmm. What was the reaction within the race community, Herb, of that?
Well, he was at Emser's funeral parlor in Wellsville, and they said that was the most flowers of anybody that they'd ever had in there, so apparently the community liked him. They all liked us around here.
What was Dean's reputation as a driver? We know he was successful, but as far as a driver, was he aggressive? Was he? I mean, what was? If they had to characterize his abilities?
Well, he was good, and of course, a lot of people telling about how good a driver he was and everything, and he was good. But one guy that kind of burnt me, he said that Dean used to go drink, and boy, he said he'd get his nerve up. And I said, wait a minute, that was in a beer joint. I was having beer. I said, wait a minute. I said, these people might get the wrong opinion of Dean. I said, Dean never drank before a race. In fact, Dean never drank that I knew of, except maybe New Year's Eve we'd have a little celebration in his cellar. Sure. We'd all bring what we wanted to drink. I said, none of us boys ever drank before a race. We didn't believe in it, and we wouldn't allow it with anybody else. So that was, he didn't. I wanted to correct that statement right there, and I did.
Right.
Because he didn't need to drink.
Right, yeah.
And it wouldn't have helped him if he had to. So, I mean, that was his idea of the driver. He didn't do nothing to get his nerve up. He just was a good driver.
Was there a style of driving? Was he, I've heard it described that he wasn't shy about kind of moving his car around and
sliding them.
That's it.
We liked that. In fact, that's what I like better about dirt. You could do that. And I raced a few times on blacktop, but that's one thing I like about dirt. You could play a little bit too at the same time as racing. In fact, Dean took me for a ride one time, and it actually took me around faster than I wanted to go. He slid a little more than he needed to, I think. Like I did one time with Bill Davidson. He wanted me to take him around the track and take him for a ride, so I took him around. He said, he ain't never going to get with me again. He wouldn't even ride on the road with me.
Does that, because of that, not every driver, I assume, did the sliding technique, or was that normal?
I think most of them did.
Most of them did, yeah.
Yeah, Brittner had to. I mean, like my driving to slide it, I'd usually start sliding just after you got past the starter, and that would slow you down for the corner. So that was more or less, the sliding was more or less to get you set up for the corner.
Gotcha. I know it's been described where John sort of took the inside and was less flamboyant.
Well, they took the inside because it was shorter, but I run at Woodhull. I set my car up for the run around the outside because there wasn't the traffic there. I mean, they was all trying to get that inside. You was out on the outside, there wasn't anybody there. Of course, sometimes they put you into the fence or over the back stretch, but you had to put up with that.
Did your brother Billy, did he follow kind of seeing all that Dean and you were doing? Was that natural, or?
I think it come more or less natural to him, same as it did me or Dean. Bill, he drove pretty much the same way we did.
Right. Now, would you tow your cars? Would you go together as a family, go to the tracks if all of you?
A lot of times, yeah. And back in the days of State Line and Sugar Grove and that, we flat towed them. Had a tow bar and hook them behind the car, no trailer. and we'd come to a hill and somebody'd jump in the stock car because it had more power than a road car and push us up the hill. So that's how we got them to the racetrack.
Do you remember anything specific that regarding State Line Speedway that maybe Billy, Dean, or even your recollections a little bit, something unique about the
It was
place?
more or less flat. It was quite flat, and I liked the bank track but better. But I liked State Line. Their people there were good to us. They were good to Dean, and they were pretty near every track I've been to. In fact, I think Woodhull was good to me, even though they sometimes wanted to catch me in my hands in the cookie jar. They wanted to tear me down and find me illegal. They never did. One night they claimed they did, but they didn't. And I was running the motor that I stroked and was allowed 265 cubic inch. And I built my motor. I run 263.747, and they couldn't figure out how I had the 300 crank in a 240 engine, but they fit right in. And I just used the 292 Ford pistons, and I was running just a little over a cubic inch under the limit.
Yeah.
And that